Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are going to tackle a really fascinating topic. How to make search engines smarter, especially when we're not just looking for basic keywords.
Yeah, it's a problem almost everyone's run into.
You know, like those searches where you need to understand how different pieces of information are connected, not just find matching words.
Exactly. Like if you're looking for the perfect product.
Oh yeah, I've definitely been there.
So say you're searching for a camera, right? That's perfect for wildlife photography, but also needs to work with your specific lenses. Traditional search engines, well, they often kind of fall short with these kinds of requests.
Makes sense. That sounds pretty tricky.
Right. So we're diving into this research paper called, and get ready for it, Knowledge-Aware Query Expansion with Large Language Models for Textual and Relational Retrieval.
Whoa, that's a mouthful.
I know, but stick with us. We'll unpack it all and pull out the most interesting parts. Promise.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, so the paper starts with a great real-world example. Imagine you're searching for a camera that's highly rated for wildlife photography, A&D, compatible with Nikon F-mount lenses.
Okay, yeah, that's super specific. I can see how that might trip up a search engine.
Exactly. Traditional search engines often miss the mark here. They tend to focus on matching individual words like camera, wildlife, Nikon, and F-mount.
But there's a lot more to it than just the words themselves.
Right. They don't grasp the crucial relationship implied by that compatible with.
And that's where the problem lies.
Yeah.
You get a bunch of cameras that might be fantastic for taking pictures of lions and tigers and bears, but they use a completely different lens system, which is no help at all.
Precisely. So the authors suggest that the key is something called knowledge graphs. KGs for short.
KGs. Okay, now you have to explain that one.
Sure. Think of a knowledge graph like a social network, but for information.
Interesting. Okay, I'm listening.
Instead of people, you have entities. Things like cameras, lenses, brands, you name it. And those entities are connected by relationships instead of friendships, like compatible with, made by, used by, that sort of thing.
I see. So it's like a map of how different bits of information relate to each other.
Exactly, a map of knowledge. And the idea is if we feed the structured knowledge from the KG into a large language model, you know, an LLM like the one powering ChatGPT.
Right. The LLM can actually understand those connections,
Yeah.
not just the individual words.
Exactly. It can grasp the context of the search, the intent behind it.
Okay, so we've got LLMs for understanding language, and now KGs for understanding relationships. But how do they actually work together? Do we just dunk the entire KG into the LLM and hope for the best?
Not quite. It's not that straightforward. The paper talks about a technique called knowledge-aware query expansion, and basically the LLM uses the KG to add in extra info to your search query, kind of behind the scenes.
Like it's doing extra research for you, huh?
Yeah, like a super smart research assistant, adding those extra keywords that you might not even think of, but that are crucial to finding the right stuff.
Okay, I like where this is going. So going back to the camera example, how would that actually work?
Right, so the LLM would identify the key entities. In that case, the camera and the Nikon F-mount lenses. Then, using the KG, it figures out what other info is connected to those entities and how.
And even though you didn't specifically type in Nikon F-mount compatibility?
The LLM can add that in
Yeah.
because it understands the relationships between cameras and lenses thanks to the KG.
So the search engine is much more likely to find cameras that actually meet both requirements.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just matching words anymore, but actually understanding the user's intent.
This is amazing, but hold on a sec. With so much info packed into a knowledge graph, wouldn't the LLM get totally bogged down? Like, wouldn't there be tons of irrelevant connections that just create noise?
That's a good point, and the researchers address that. Instead of just using the names of entities in the KG, they use the full text of documents associated with those entities.
Wait, so instead of just Nikon camera, it actually digs into the specifics of each camera model.
Exactly. The document text might say that one particular camera is especially good for wildlife photography, which is crucial for your search, but wouldn't be obvious from just the name Nikon camera in the KG.
Okay, so more context means a more focused search. But how does it avoid drowning in a sea of text from all those documents?
That's where another cool thing comes in. Document-based relation filtering.
All right, break that down for me.
Think of it like pruning a tree, getting rid of unnecessary branches to keep it healthy and strong. The LLM uses the document text to figure out which relationships from the KG are actually relevant to your query and which ones can be ignored.
I see. It's like smart pruning for information.
Yeah.
That ensures the LLM stays laser focused on your specific needs.
Precisely. So to put all of this to the test, they use 3 different data sets.
Okay, so real-world data. Tell me more about those data sets.
So they use data sets from the Stark benchmark, which is specifically designed for evaluating systems that handle these kinds of textual and relational queries.
That sounds intense.
Yeah, it's pretty comprehensive. The first one was Amazon, focused on products, cameras, lenses, that kind of thing. Then there was MAG, dealing with academic papers, connecting things like citations, authors, and fields of study.
Okay, so a real mix of information types.
Exactly. And then they also used PRIME, a data set for biomedical inquiries. That one links things like diseases, drugs, genes, proteins.
Wow, that's quite a range. So did this combo of knowledge graphs and LLMs actually improve the search results? Like, did it work?
Yeah, the results were really promising. This system, called Knowledge-Aware Retrieval, or KR for short, it consistently outperformed traditional search methods, and even beat some more advanced LM techniques that didn't use knowledge graphs.
So it seems like combining the power of LLMs with the structure of KGs really does make a difference.
Absolutely. And what's really interesting is that KR performed best when the knowledge graph was really dense, meaning lots of connections, and the documents had rich, descriptive text.
So the denser the knowledge graph, the smarter the search engine becomes. It's like having this vast network of information at its fingertips. But why is the text quality so important?
Well, think of it this way. The denser the knowledge graph, the more potential connections the LLM can explore. But if the documents themselves are full of details, the LLM can actually understand the nuances of those relationships, which leads to more accurate results.
Okay, so it's not just about quantity, it's about quality too. Like having a well-organized library where every book has a detailed label. The LLM can quickly find the right book instead of digging through a jumbled mess. Makes sense.
Exactly. So it's about having a structured knowledge base and making sure the information within that base is rich and descriptive.
Okay, so they tested this with data sets specifically designed for these complex searches. But how did KAR handle queries written by real people? Like, us humans can be pretty unpredictable in how we phrase things.
That's true, yeah. Real-world queries are often a lot messier than the ones used in controlled settings.
Exactly. Sometimes I don't even know what I'm looking for.
Well, they did test it with real-world queries, and KIR still did remarkably well. Even with those complex and less predictable queries, it outperformed the other methods.
Wow, so it's adaptable. It can handle those nuances of human language. That's good to hear. I could already imagine how different my online experience would be if search engines were this smart. No more sifting through pages of vaguely related links.
Exactly. It has the potential to completely change the way we search. Imagine if search engines could understand not just the words you type, but also the relationships between those words. It would transform online shopping, research, even the way we access medical information.
That brings up another interesting point from the paper. They mentioned that this approach is scalable and flexible. So it can handle new information being added to the knowledge base without needing a ton of retraining or adjustments.
Right, that's key. KAR is designed to adapt and evolve as the knowledge graph grows, which is essential for real-world search engines that are constantly being updated.
So it's not a static system that needs constant tweaking. That makes it a much more viable solution for improving search in practical applications.
Exactly. It's all about creating a system that can grow and learn along with the ever-expanding world of information.
This is all incredibly promising. But are there any limitations we should be aware of? The paper did mention some, right?
Of course, no system is perfect. One of the main limitations they discussed is efficiency. While they've made improvements, using the LLM still takes some time, especially with a very large and complex knowledge graph.
So there's a bit of a trade-off then. We get more accurate and relevant results, but it might take a few milliseconds longer. I'm not sure if that's such a bad thing, though. I mean, I'd gladly wait a little longer if it meant getting much better search results. It's like the saying, slow and steady wins the race.
I like that analogy. Sometimes taking a little extra time can lead to a much more satisfying outcome. And in this case, it means getting search results that are truly relevant to what you're looking for, not just a bunch of random links.
Precisely. So a tiny bit of extra processing time for a much better search experience. Seems like a fair trade-off to me. Were there any other limitations they discussed?
They also acknowledged that KAR's performance, like any system using LLMs, is tied to the capabilities of the underlying language model. So if the LLM itself has gaps in its knowledge or struggles with certain types of reasoning, those limitations will show up in the results.
Right. Even the most advanced AI is still a product of its training data and algorithms. It's like having a really brilliant student who excels in most subjects, but might stumble in a few specific areas. They still have incredible potential, but it's important to understand their strengths and limitations.
That's a great way to put it. And that's why ongoing research is so important in this area. We need to keep refining these systems, addressing their limitations, and expanding their capabilities so they can reach their full potential.
This deep dive has been incredibly insightful. It's amazing to see how researchers are pushing the boundaries of what search engines can do, moving beyond simple keyword matching to a much deeper understanding of information and how it's all connected. It really feels like we're on the verge of a major breakthrough.
It's a really exciting field, and the possibilities are vast. Imagine a future where searching is less about finding a needle in a haystack and more about having a conversation with a knowledgeable assistant. Someone who understands what you're looking for and can help you find it in the most efficient way possible.
That sounds like a future I'm definitely looking forward to. And on that note, well, we've come to the end of our deep dive into the world of knowledge graphs and smarter search. But before we sign off, we want to leave you with something to think about.
A little food for thought, as they say.
If search engines could really grasp those relationships, understand how different pieces of information are connected, just as well as they understand the words themselves, how would that change your online experience?
Would it change the way you approach searching altogether?
Like, would you find yourself asking completely different questions?
Maybe instead of just typing in keywords, you'd have more of a back and forth with the search engine, like a conversation.
Right. Almost like having a research partner.
Exactly. So as you go about your day today, we encourage you to think about that. How this shift in search could change things, not just online, but in your life as a whole.
And until next time, stay curious, keep exploring, and remember, there's always more to discover.